Welcome everybody. Welcome to the live stream. I've got a story today that I wanted to share with you guys. I was a little reluctant to share it in the first place, and I thought about it, and I figured, well, yeah, it might be something you guys would be interested in. So here I am. I'm gonna let you know kind of what happened, what took place. It's been about, I would say, 10 years, maybe a little more now, since I left California. This story actually took place in California. And just a quick disclaimer here, you can't believe anything I'm telling you here because this, of course, is fake news. I cannot drive that home enough. So, but it is a curious story, and I thought you guys would be interested in hearing it. So here it is. And, if you guys are just jumping on the live stream, make sure and hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you guys haven't already, because I got a lot of this content coming up. I'm trying to revive this channel. YouTube has pretty much almost killed it, but we're back, and I guess we're violating their strict guidelines as well. So, but today we hope not to do that. We're not going to try to offend anybody or ruffle any feathers too badly. I did a live stream on my other channel, Off Grid 406, and got into a little bit of trouble. You can normally tell because the first thing that they do is they take your monetization away from you. So that's the first clue, and then it just gets worse from there. But at any rate, let's jump into this story. So this took place in a little town called King City, California, and if you were to Google King City Police Department, you would probably come up with something. Now it's been quite a few years. You might have to search through a few of the, a little bit of the Google posts there, but eventually you'll come across the corruption in the police department there in King City. So at any rate, this and the fact that we were hunting hogs in the FBI, and I should have put down in there the North Daniel gangs as well, because all of these kind of just meld together in one melting pot, and it's just a bunch of stories that kind of all come together. And let's see how good of a storyteller I am today, and let's see how well I can pull it together, because there's a lot going on and it might sound pretty jumbled up, but I'll do the best I can and get it out there the best I can as well. So anyways, it all starts when we move out to King City on a little ranch, and we were hired to do some farming, and we were hired to deprivate some wild hogs. And if you guys don't know, wild hogs, especially in that part of the country, are extremely invasive, and they get into the crops. They get into especially crops like barley and spinach and things like that, a lot of the things that they grow in the Salinas Valley. So they hire guys like myself to go in there and eradicate them. And you might think to yourself, some of you that might be sportsmen out there, well, that would be a super fun job. Who wouldn't want to do that job? It was actually a hell of a lot of work, to be quite honest. But anyways, you need a special permit from the game warden to be able to do these things. And so I went down and I applied for the permit, and so the game warden would meet me. I was talking to him on the phone, and he says, "Okay, well, I'll have to meet you, and I'll give you a piece of paper, and we'll get it all filled out and everything." And so blah blah blah. So he did. A couple days later, he met me out there, and we introduced ourselves. Now this particular fella's name was Stutes. And that's significant because if you remember watching the show Game Wardens, he actually was on the show. He starred as one of the game wardens for a little while. Straight up guy, a great law enforcement officer, and as far as I know, he's about as straight shooting as they get. That was the vibe I got off of this guy. And by the way, he was not only a game warden, but he was a narcotics officer. Now, keep that in mind as the story goes forward. So, anyways, I get my permit from him, and I wind up driving him around the ranch a little bit. And he starts asking me questions about, well, gee, this would be a great lookout, if you were to, be a grower or be dealing with the cartel, and he was making comments like that, through the tour of the ranch. And so, and of course, I was driving around in his truck, and the neighbors happened to see this, right? And so I did not realize it at the time, but the neighbors had thought in their minds, hey, this guy is, without a doubt, a narc. He's hanging out with the foremost narcotics officer / game warden in the whole entire area of Bitterwater. So immediately they labeled me as a narcotics officer that was working in cahoots with Stoots. Okay. So this was all unbeknownst to me, and I didn't even know who Stoots was because I never watched the show Game Wardens. So at any rate, we finished our little tour, and he went along his way. He gave me the permit, and I would then proceed to go along and deprivate these hogs, to take care of this hog population. And that in of itself, like I mentioned before, was a huge job, getting out there every single night. And it was just a ton of work. And if you're wondering if I ate them, no, I did not. I did not eat a single one of them. I wouldn't even touch these creatures that were, dead on the ground. We killed a lot of them. And of course, my friends would be like, oh, I want to go hunting. I want to go hunting. I says, well, hop aboard. So I would take them hunting, and they would take 1 or 2 home, and then that's all they would want. And I'm like, dude, there's a whole bunch up here. There's as many as you would like. And of course, it turned out to be so much work for them that they soon realized why I was leaving so many lay. And, beyond that, I don't eat pig. Okay. And no, I'm not a Muslim, in case you're wondering, but I just don't eat pig. And so, neither here nor there, we were killing the living daylights out of these animals. Now, I had mentioned that, this particular game warden was commenting and trying to get, later I would find out he was trying to extract information from me, by when he was asking me these questions. And so he would often call and he would say, how's it going out there? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, by the way, do you know so-and-so? I didn't know who so-and-so was. How about this other guy? Do you know who this other guy is? That rings a bell. I might know him. Isn't he the guy that lives around on the other side? And he goes, yeah, that's the one. He says, have you seen him up there by your ranch? And no, I don't think I have. I just kind of mind my own business and do my thing. There's a lot of people that come in and off the ranch, and I don't see everybody, so I can't speak for everybody here, but I'm pretty sure that no, he didn't. And he says, okay, just curious. Anyways, he says, yeah. He says, if you could keep an eye out for this fella. And he says, also, well, I don't want to get too far ahead on the story here. This is where I have a tough time telling stories. I want to go jumping ahead too quickly. But so anyways, that was the end of that conversation. And so it was life as normal for a little while. But I noticed my neighbors started to look at me a little funny, and we started having weird conversations with them as well. And they were asking a lot of questions on why I was hanging out with the game warden and why he was calling. Well, I had no idea they knew that he was calling. These were all private conversations that were coming across from the telephone. And how the hell would they know I was talking to him on the phone? And so this was like my first clue that something was up, and simultaneously my son gets a job down at a metal working shop. Now I'm going to change the name of these people because they're pretty well known people in this area, and you wouldn't have to do much searching to know exactly who they are. But just for the sake of the story, we're going to call these the Sanchez brothers. Okay. Now these were Hispanic guys. They were had a very successful business in the steel industry. And they had not only a big steel working shop, but they also had a Harley shop that they never really did much with. It was full of nice Harleys. They had a deli that was never open, but it was fully stocked and ready to go. And then they had a hair salon and a tattoo parlor, and it was like this whole plaza that they owned, but the steel shop was the only one that was open and operating. And so I thought that was weird. But anyways, my son got a job with these guys. I had first of all, I was hired to weld this gate up. And so instead of, let me see, how'd that go? I think I bought some metal from them or something. Or wait a second. No, they welded the gate up. That's right. Okay, so I contracted them to weld this gate up. And I was thinking of two different jobs at once there. So they welded the gate up. And anyways, we made a friendship, him and I, one of the brothers in particular. And he had a nickname, so he would often go by his nickname. Well, actually, I do know. Do I know his real name? No, I just know his nickname. Anyways, him and I started talking, and we kind of hit it off. Just, you know how you meet some people and immediately you just click. You just, everything is synchronized, and that's the way him and I were. And so he would call up, and we started like doing small business deals together and stuff like that. And his father he was from a really hard working family. His father started the steel company back in the day, and then what appeared like it just blew up, and he started making lots and lots of money, more money than a steel company in a little town like King City should ever make. But he was getting big projects, so nobody really questioned it, and it was kind of like a little family operation, and everybody was working hard. But I mean, for example, this guy would drive around in Hummers when Hummers were like super, super, super expensive, and that was like the world's best vehicle. Or, well, not the world's best vehicle, but you guys know what I'm saying. It was like when you saw someone driving a Hummer, you're thinking right away, these guys are making big money, whatever it is that they're doing. So anyways, we continue to work on the ranch, and over the years, I became better and better friends with Sanchez. And so at the same time, when we would go to town, now this is story number 3 I'm going to start here, but they're all going to pull together here. Now, at the same time I would go to town, oftentimes we'd get pulled over by the local PD, and like clockwork, they were pulling us over all the time. And it was really annoying, quite frankly, because they would claim that our light on our license plate wasn't working, or that our blinker wasn't working. Of course, when we tried to get out of the vehicle and look at it ourselves, they would never allow us to do that, and they would go through all our paperwork. And this happened literally 24 times going through the town. And so it was it was not only annoying, but it started to disturb me, because I'm thinking, these guys should know me by now. I'm driving this particular vehicle around. How come they keep pulling me over? And how come they keep, it was like harassment almost, it felt like harassment. So, anyways, now where do I tie this all together? This is the hard part. So anyways, they had, I guess this would be story number 4. So now then they had a community up there as well. It was a bunch of ranchers. It was a bunch of, kind of good old boys type people. And they had this project that they were constantly working on to supply the water to the people that live there. And there was this particular dam that was up in the mountains that they would go up and they would work on, right? And only certain people were allowed up there. It was kind of top secret. It was something that they didn't really allow just anybody to go up there unless you were kind of in the little group. And I definitely was not in the group, because people were already, the little buzz in town was already going around that I was a narc. I was, narcotics officer that might turn you in for something, that you might be doing wrong. Which wasn't true. I was not a narc, but at any rate, I can see how they thought I probably was. So story number 4 was this secret little dam that they had going on up there, and that they kind of ran doing their thing. So unbeknownst to us, the FBI, here's where the FBI comes in. They started an investigation in the local PD over corruption. And this corruption, as it turned out, was quite deep. And it was they were actually investigating a combination of the guy that I knew in town with the metalworking shop and the police department in a big drug smuggling operation that was taking place in town. And the police, in fact, what they were doing was that they were pulling people over, and they were confiscating, if you were an illegal alien or something like that and you didn't have a driver's license, they would confiscate your vehicle. And not only would they confiscate your vehicle, but then they would fill it full of drugs, and they would contract different people. Sometimes they would even contract the people they would pull over. I mean, especially if they had like a criminal history or something, then they would leverage them through blackmail to smuggle drugs. They would drive the cars to Mexico and then bring heroin and what's that other one? I think it was mainly fentanyl and some other stuff they were bringing over the border. And so, and cocaine and marijuana. I mean, there was a lot of different types of narcotics that were involved in this whole thing. So the FBI was investigating them. They were investigating this particular friend of mine, and as it turned out, there was some connection with the people that I was working with as well up on the ranch. I can't prove that the people I was working directly with were in on it, but there were some other people that definitely were in on this whole thing. And one of the kingpins was a rancher that lived on the other side from us, and I'm not sure what he did as far as his involvement in all of this, but somehow or another he had some ties with the cartel and with some very bad people. And so as I'm sitting down there at the barn one day, just going through some scrap metal, I was probably looking for something to I don't know, I'm always doodling around making things, so I'm looking for something that I could find to make probably a wind generator. I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but this fella pulls in on his quad and he looks angry. And he says, no, what does he say? He says, "What are you doing here?" And of course I lived there, so that was a strange question to ask me. And I'm like, I'm just looking through some iron. I said, "What are you doing here?" Because he got a little little cross with me, and he didn't know it, but I had my gun tucked in the back of my belt, and he had his gun, obviously, on his holster, on his person, and he started to question me, and he says, well, I really can't tell you the questions that he asked me, to be honest, but he did say this. He says, "You don't belong here." And he says, "Listen," he says, "here's the deal." He says, "We just got through killing somebody like you. We tied him up and we shot him in the back of the head, and he's up there by the such and such dam, and we buried him in a shallow grave." And he says, "We do this to people who interfere with what's going on." And he says, "And we'll just shoot your ass." And I got a little cheeky with him at that point, and I says, "Well, I got a gun too, are we gonna have a gunfight right now?" And at any rate, which was the last thing I wanted to do, but at any rate, he kind of drove off. He said some words, and he drove off, and I said some more words, and we left, kind of left like that. And so from that point on, I could see that things were heating up, and they were really tense at that point. And so now the people that we were staying with, they were starting to be affected because they were getting phone calls from different people telling them that, hey, they got to get rid of us and they got to get us the hell out of there. And I'm also getting calls from the game warden saying, "Hey, man, this guy said this about you and this guy said this about you. What do you think about all these people out there?" And I think what he was doing was he was hunting, because what happens when you accuse somebody of something, they try to find dirt on the other guy as well and turn them in for the same, for something, And so I think that's one of the tactics that the game warden was using. He was saying, "Hey, they said that you're using lead bullets when you're shooting the hogs. Is that true?" And then, of course, I would say, "Who said that?" And then he says, "Well, some people around there, some people that live nearby you are saying that." And of course, that would prompt me probably to say something like, "Oh yeah, they're growing drugs or they're trafficking," or something like that. That's probably what he was expecting me to say, but I never did. I kept the lid on it. So at any rate, things just kept getting hotter and hotter there, and it was becoming more and more difficult all the time for us to remain there. And so we started making provisions to get out. Things started heating up. Things got dangerous. And then my friend down there at the metal shop, the one the FBI was investigating, that's what I found out later, after the fact, but he come up and he told me, he says, look, he says, somebody put a hit out on one of your boys. And by the way, did I mention this guy was also a high-ranking Norteño officer? And so he was a senior gang member that was orchestrating a lot of the things that were going in town with the narcotics and with the trafficking and stuff like that. But he also must have had a heart because, and these people, you got to understand, are ruthless. They don't care who lives and die. But for some reason, he kind of took a liking to me, and enough to the point where he would take me aside and tell me, hey, they've got a hit out on your son. You guys need to leave town immediately. I don't know what's going on, but things are getting really bad around here. And it was about that time that, and I believed him too because of some of the things that was happening, because one of the friends in town that my sons had, they would hang out with this guy. This guy's house had just gotten shot up. And I was told that they believed that my boys were inside that house. And so I said, you know what, boys, you ain't going to town no more. We're going to stay here on the ranch, and we're getting the hell out of here. We're going to move the hell out of here. We got to move out fast. And it was about that time, thank God, that the FBI made their move on the local police department. And they came in and they started arresting people. One of the sheriffs of this police department actually fled to Mexico. He was a Mexican native that earned his citizenship and then became sheriff, and he was kind of orchestrating a lot of this stuff that was going on. He was like the number one most wanted, but he takes off. Turns out the Sanchez brothers kind of got off a lot. They weren't even arrested. I think they were doing business in such a way that they outsmarted the FBI and they outsmarted the PD. They outsmarted everybody. They wasn't their first barbecue. They kind of knew what was going on. And so, and I happened to be a hapless victim in this whole thing, and he recognized it, and he kind of, blew the whistle and so that I could get the hell out of there before really bad things started happening. And, so at any rate, so these police officers were now all under arrest except for, I can't think of that guy's name right now. You guys might find it on the Google article anyways, but, so they plea bargained them, and they plea bargained down from drug trafficking, of course, to, probably because I didn't have hard enough evidence to really convict these guys in court. They had some soft evidence on them, enough to scare these guys and get a plea bargain, and that's what they did. And so basically they plea bargained down to illegal confiscation of vehicles and a couple of other charges. And basically it was just a slap on the hand. And here, we're going to defer most of your sentence. You guys got to spend about a month in jail, and that'll be about that, in the special jail at that. They don't put them in the mains, because of course, as you probably know, if you're a police officer and you're put into the mains, you're a dead man. So that kind of lightened up the load a little bit, and I noticed the mood changed at that point on the ranch. And so the fact that they thought that I was possibly a narcotics officer maybe increased my safety margin, if you will, because they thought, I had the federal government now backing me up, and the federal government made their move and took some of the heat off of me. And so things got quiet a little bit, but then we continued to want to get the hell out of there, as you can imagine. I mean, it was not a comfortable place to be no more. Now that we knew what we knew, some of what we knew. I mean, we learned most of it when we moved out, but, we knew enough, all kinds of uncomfortable vibes, man, coming from every direction. And so it was all pointed at us. We were all the bad guys. And I couldn't understand what the hell, why the hell they would think that we're the bad guys. We were just innocent bystanders. But at any rate, interestingly enough, and this might be another story, we got another job in town where we, how do I say this without giving the story away? Well, we kind of dug up, a bunch of gold coins. This sounds like Pirates of the Caribbean type crap, but it's true. It's fake news, but it's true. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, we dug up a bunch of gold coins. That's what financed our trip here to Montana. And lo and behold, here we are. And I've loved every minute of it. And we got the hell out of there and got our kids out of danger. And now my oldest is nearly 30 years old. So, that was a close call. And so that was my kind of run in with the police department and the crookedness that is in some of these places. And now I'm much wiser, I'm much smarter. When I'm looking around, I can see this stuff. When I saw that school shooting at Uvalde and I saw how those police officers behaved, I knew right away that whole precinct was corrupt. I could spot it, I could smell it. Even though that was all the way in Texas and I'm all the way up here in Montana, just watching how that whole thing went down told me that those men were not committed to their job, that they had other agendas, they had other reasons for being police officers, and it wasn't to protect the safety of the people, and that was their primary job that they were hired to do, but that was definitely not why they were there, if you get my drift. And there's a lot of these corrupt police departments all over the country, and I can see how, now, I've told you before, I'm a conservative leaning individual. I lean conservative, but I can see how, Black America can want to defund the police, and how, how it must be in these big cities. I mean, we have to empathize with our, brothers, with our these are American brothers of ours. And some of these people are suffering a lot of oppression from these types of police departments. And it's a real shame that they have to go through what they go through. Now, the methods which they're using, of course, are all wrong. It's the pendulum swing goes one way too far and then the other way too far. And it never is balanced, is it? Black Lives Matter and the whole idea of defunding the police, was actually wrong. What they needed to do was some internal investigations, hire some special investigators to go in and randomly pick police departments in these areas and pick out the dirty, because listen, that's all it takes. The old saying, one bad apple spoils the whole barrel. Well, nothing is more true than it is when you're in a PD, police department, because you get one guy that's corrupt, and then another guy is corrupt, and then another guy, and then you get 3 or 4 guys that are corrupt. Well, and then you're joining in, you're coming into all of this, and next thing you know, you're expected to behave like they are, or you're not one of the brothers, the one of the brotherhoods, part of the blue blood. And so this becomes a real problem. It's a contagion, it's a cancer, and they need accountability in these police departments. They need better training, not less money and less training, but they need more training. Now, what I think has happened with the government and their methodology is that with this defund the police was actually a purge, if you will, right? And the big C word, you guys know what I'm talking about when I say the C word, and the, you know what I'm saying, that became another purge. And a lot of individuals that were decent and honest had to leave because of their principles, and they had ethics by which they lived by, which now are being challenged. And so, what are you going to do when that happens and there's nowhere else to go? You have to leave. And so then they replace you. And what are they going to replace you with? They're going to replace you with yes men. You see what they're doing? They're actually building an army that is capable of, how do I say this? That is capable of obeying the most outrageous orders given to them from higher up. You understand where I'm coming from? So if some evil entity were to be planning some bad stuff, they could use the local PDs, which now have been purged and are full of yes men, to do their biddings, to enforce whatever it is, whatever edicts that they pass. And so that's what we're seeing. We've also seen it in the military as well. It's very strategic plays that have been taking place. you know, and I've been told by people that this is not happening, that I'm over imagining all this stuff. But what do you guys think? What is your response to what I'm saying? I would love to hear from you guys, and what you guys know, because you know, you guys are pretty darn smart, and read all of your comments. And so yeah, would love to hear from you guys. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Share these videos. I'm trying to grow my channel, and if you think it's worthy of actually sharing this and letting other people listen to it, you know, that would be much appreciated. So with that, we're going to sign off. You guys take care. I love you guys, and we'll see you on the next video.